Who's all been in a store and you hear across the aisle a screaming toddler or baby or child or kid for that matter throwing a temper tantrum because mommy said no about this, or they're not getting to push the cart, or whatever the case may be? I know I have. And in order to prevent that from happening to you and your family and future embarrassment with your children, I have a few rules in place that I use at the store to just keep it peaceful. Mainly because going to the store is stressful enough, let alone dealing with child behaviors while you're there. Now, I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year, almost 2-year-old. And these rules work. We set them in place. I teach them at home. We go over them when we're in the car, and it will dramatically change what you do and how they act in the store. So, if you're ready for a peaceful trip to the store, let me go over these rules for you that you can start implementing and going over with your kids in order to make it a much more peaceful trip. Oh, and just for your information, my kids are not perfect. I took my 2-year-old that turns 2 on Friday in to the store today. We went to 3 different stores, and I'm pretty sure she screamed in all 3 of them. So it's a matter of training from a very young age, and we've been doing it with all of our children since they were that age, since they were 2, and it makes the trip so much more peaceful. I can take my 3-year-old in there, I could take my 5-year-old in there, and my 7-year-old in there, and we have no issues. So, game-changing store rules. Here we go. First, I teach my children that they are not allowed to touch anything on the shelves. Nothing. No merchandise allowed. Until they get to like 5 or 7-year-olds, I'll have my kids help me pick stuff off the shelf and put it into the cart, but that's only with my permission and only with me watching them to make sure nothing gets broken or spilled. Next, and this one is obvious, not only for their safety, but just so that you're not running all over the store, especially when you have multiple children that are young, like me. Stay next to mom. I drill this into them. If they are not within a few feet of me, then they are too far away. Like, especially when they're little, when they cannot defend themselves, and you need to keep an eye on them. I've heard way too many stories of kids getting swiped in grocery stores because they were on the next aisle or they were around that corner from their mother, and that ain't happening to my kids. Another one of those like really obvious ones is don't get on the floor. Like, no, that's not only that's that gross, but that's not teaching them how to behave as they grow up. They need to learn to have the self-discipline and the control so you can take them out in public without them acting like a pack of wild animals, wrestling and rolling on the floor, especially if it's a temper tantrum. Another huge one that has helped a lot is I set down the rule, no asking for anything in the store. Like, none. So if we walk over near the toy aisle, or if we're walking in the clearance aisle or whatever, and they see something they want, they cannot ask for it. Now, I am not saying don't ask for anything. If we walk into the fruits and vegetable aisle and I want them to help me pick out fruits and vegetables that they'll eat this week, then I can ask their opinion on that. But you don't walk into a store with your child having the open mind that the whole store is theirs, and the minute you say no, they're going to have a temper tantrum because, God forbid, you tell them no. And those are pretty much my 4 major ones. There are a lot more of the smaller ones, like no hiding in the clothes aisles and don't talk to strangers. And just the pretty much obvious ones that your kids should know. Obviously, they can't disobey me in the store, and if I ask them to do something, they need to be able to do it. Like, keep your hands off of each other unless you're being sweet, holding hands, etc. Like, we don't need any fighting. But those are pretty much ones that are common sense and are more drilled into my kids just because that's home life too. By the way, not sorry to say this, but somebody needs to. If your kids are not obeying you and doing what you ask them to do at home, then they're definitely not going to do it in the store in public. In fact, they're going to use the store in public to get what they want because they know they can humiliate you and more than likely get whatever they're screaming. All right, here is the fun part. I promised this at the beginning, and I will keep my promise. All right? Don't bribe your kids. Please don't do that. Don't say, I'll buy you a piece of candy if you're really good in the store, because that does nothing more than teaches them to jump through the hoop to get what they want. What you want to do is you want to train them from the inside out. So they need to know why these rules are in place. Like, why are we not screaming and throwing a fit on the floor? Well, because it disrupts other people's peace as well in the store. Why are we not touching merchandise? First off, you might break it. Second off, because nobody else wants to touch something that you're like, wants to buy something that your dirty hands smell like, or you get my picture. But the fun part is getting to reward them at the end of the trip if they did good. Don't do this every single time, because then it will just turn out to be a bribery and they'll start to expect it. But on the days that they've done much better than they normally do, pick them up a piece of candy when you're at the checkout aisle and say, this is because you guys have done such a great job today, and reward them for the good behavior without bribing them for it. Or maybe it's an ice cream treat or a small toy. You take advantage of the good behavior and make sure that you're rewarding it. All right, so I'm just imagining the next question is like, all right, so what happens when my kids are in the store and they are screaming and they are throwing a fit and they're not listening to me when I tell them this and that? Well, first off, make sure that you're instilling the listening to me rules at home first. Once that's in place. Secondly, in the middle of the store, whenever all of this is going on, depending on what you're comfortable with, you can take them to a bathroom and take care of the behavior. You can sit down with them right then and there and start having a chit chat, reminding them of the rules of the store, continuing the conversation. Do not bribe them. Do not back down on your stance. Just sit down and remind them. Okay? Thirdly, I've heard a lot of people say that they will just leave all their stuff and go straight home, take care of the child's behavior, and then go back to the store. No, I can't do that. If you live 5 minutes from the store, fine, you do that. You do your thing. But I live 20 minutes outside of town, and so by the time I get up and pack my kit, it's just too far. It's just too far to do. So what I normally do is I don't know, like tally in my head. I don't actually take a tally, but just know in my head who needs to be taken care of. And when I get home, I take care of it. That, or if it's something more severe and needs to be taken care of quickly, especially with the younger children, since they have a hard time remembering what they did, I will take care of it in the car when we get done with grocery shopping. And yes, sometimes that means just letting your kids scream while you're walking through the store. But don't give them their way. Otherwise, it'll be worse next time. Anyway, I hope these help. Feel free to ask questions. I am definitely here to give you guys any kind of advice or help that I can possibly give you. And have a great day.